Hi guys, I'm Amy. Welcome back to my channel. Today I have a reading wrap up for all of you. I have 5 books I'm going to be chatting about that I have read recently, and by recently I mean within like the last month. This does not include any of the books that I've not wrapped up for months and months and months. I'm still figuring out the best way to approach chatting with you guys about those books, because for some of them it's been a while since I've read them. So stay tuned for that, but if you guys are interested in the books I've read very recently, then go ahead and keep on watching. So I have been reading a lot of romance novels lately, or I've been drawn to them, and I think it's just because there's a lot of not fun stuff going on right now, and a romance novel is easy to read, simple, not intense at all, very light, and they end happy. So if you're looking for that kind of thing, check out some romance novels, because they will deliver, but they're not always the best as far as writing and like composition goes. But this one actually surprised me, because I have struggled with romance novels in the past, especially since I've enjoyed more I don't want to say literary, but just like other genres that are different than romance. We'll just put it that way. But one that I did really enjoy and kind of surprised me was A Good Day to Marry a Duke by Bettina Cron. And in this story, we were following a young woman named Daisy. And this story takes place, this is not Regency. This takes place in the late 1800s, 1888. And Daisy is what is considered a silver heiress. So her family, they are Americans, they struck it rich, and now Daisy has gone to England to try and find a husband. And in this adventure that she goes on, she comes across Lord Ashton Graham, who is charged with keeping her away from his older brother, who is a duke. And they're trying to avoid that relationship happening, and that's kind of where this story starts out. But what I think I really enjoyed about this book is that Daisy is no shrinking violet. She's not a shrinking violet when it comes to their sexual encounters that do happen in this book, and she's opinionated and she's doing her best to be what she's supposed to be, but struggles with it. And I just found that to be very refreshing, especially in regards to the sexual things that happen in this book, because so many female leads in these books, leads, that's a movie term, female characters in these books tend to be like, oh no, I don't know what's happening, and Daisy wasn't like that, and I found that refreshing. So if you're looking for something that's a little bit different than I would say your average Regency romance type story, maybe check this one out. It's a series. I plan on continuing when I feel like picking up a romance novel again here soon. But there you have it, A Good Day to Marry a Duke. A book that I read for my local book club that, spoiler alert, was very disappointing was Today We Go Home by Kelly Estes. This is a dual timeline story. The modern day story, we follow Larkin Bennett, and she has just been discharged from the army due to injuries and her PTSD. And then the secondary timeline, or the historical timeline, is of Emily Wilson in 1861, who disguises herself as a man so that she can fight in the Civil War. And she's based on a real character. So I think this story had a lot of potential, and it was definitely one that I'm like, yeah, I would read that. But I think the writing was awful. The approach to PTSD and how it was discussed and dealt with, I think, was very poorly done. I am not very well versed in PTSD firsthand. I mean, I studied it in school, but I think it was very cliche in the way that it was handled. And it was just a huge disappointment. I think this book could have been really good, especially with the fact that Emily Wilson was like a real person who actually existed, and it just really fell short. The ending had this awful component to it that was absolutely not needed. There's a romance that happens that I think, again, not at all needed. It was just kind of cliche, and cliche about things that you shouldn't be cliche about, like PTSD and women's rights and those type of situations. It just was very disappointing, and that was the general consensus of my book club as well. So that being the case, because there are books that I read in book club that I don't like that most of the other ladies like, but we were all kind of on the same page for this one, so maybe this is one that you should skip. I know people love her first book, The Girl Who Wrote in Silk. and it's still been recommended to me. So I haven't written her off as an author by any means, but this one, I don't think it's worth your time. There's better things for you to read. I have been very, very drawn to fantasy as of late. I think that plays into the looking for lighter reads, and for whatever reason in my brain, fantasy goes with lighter reading, and I know that is not always the case, but in the fantasy books that I tend to have on my shelf, that seems to be the case. So I decided to pick up Solace by Gail Carringer. This is book 1 of a Parasol Protectorate novel. This is a very, very popular book because this is like 18th century. Is it 18th century? I actually don't know. It's historical, and it's steampunk. Our main character is Alexia Terabati, and she is soulless, which means she doesn't have a soul. And there are other supernatural creatures in this, and like werewolves and vampires, and they are out in society, and people know about them, but there's certain rules and whatnot. And this is about what happens when a bunch of like rogue vampires start popping up in London, and Alexia kind of goes to figure out what's going on. There is a romance element to this story that I was not anticipating, but very much enjoyed. It was just overall a really fun read, and it definitely helped bust me out of the reading slump that I've been in for a while now. So I can't say anything as to the writing being like phenomenal or whatnot, but the story was fun, the characters were fun, I really enjoyed it. I have every intention of continuing on with the series at some point, just because it is fun. And sometimes you just need a fun escapist read, and that was exactly what this was. It was exactly what I was looking for, and I definitely recommend, if any of those things sound fun or interesting to you, Alexia is a really, really interesting character in that she can be very proper and wants to respect rules and etiquette, but then simultaneously like break all of them, and that dichotomy of her character was fantastic. So I recommend it. It was a joy to read. I think there's a good reason a lot of people seem to have liked it so much. I'm not sure if many of you know this about me, but I am a fairly big MCU fan. I really, really enjoy the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I didn't read the comics or anything growing up, and I don't now, but Erin has always really enjoyed Marvel, and I thoroughly enjoy Marvel, and one of my very, very favorite Marvel characters is Loki. Yes, I have a dog named Loki. No, we did not name him Loki. He was a rescue or a foster, excuse me, that we failed. So he stayed with us forever, and we just kept his name, and it very much fits him. But I've always loved the character of Loki. And so when I saw that Mackenzie Lee, who I have loved her other books that I've read by her, was the one writing Loki's story, or Where Mischief Lies, I was very, very excited about it. So in this story, we are following the character of Loki, and it starts out when he's like a teen, and really discusses his feelings of just like that he doesn't fit in. You know, he has magic, but people don't really trust it in Asgard, and everybody loves Thor. Thor's the hero, he's great, and how Loki just kind of ends up disappointing people, except for one person, and that person is Amora. Yes, Amora, and she is the Asgardians' sorceress's apprentice. I made that very difficult on myself, and this is about their relationship, and when the two of them destroy something very, very important for Asgard, Amora is sent to Earth, where essentially she will die because there's no magic on Earth. But then Loki is sent to Earth years later to look into some mysterious things happening in London, and this is happening in like 19th century London, so it is historical, and that was super fun. But Mackenzie's approach to Loki being a character that's not your typical cis male is really, really well done, and I enjoyed that part of this book, and I think this book is fun, but in general I would say it was kind of disappointing. I didn't really get on board with the story at any point, in the sense that I was just like not wowed by it. Like, I read it because I wanted to read it because it's Loki and it's Mackenzie Lee, but in general it's not my favorite thing. I don't necessarily feel like you should rush out and read it. There were moments that I enjoyed, and where she alluded to things that happened later on in the MCU, but in general, it was fine. It wasn't great. It wasn't bad. It just kind of was. But the cover's great. I'm not getting rid of this book by any means, because it's Loki, and I think Loki's cool. But I haven't read any of the other books in this like Disney Marvel written book series at all, and you guys can let me know if you've had success with them or not, because I haven't written them off by any means, but it was fine, I guess. That was a terrible review, but we're just gonna stick with that. It was fine. This next book is a book that I just stumbled upon in my local bookshop because it was in the fantasy section, but it is a trade paperback. So it stuck out, so I picked it up. And that book was Shades of Milk and Honey by Mary Robinette Kowal. And this story is so fun. This is I think they say Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell, which I haven't read, so I can't vouch for that. But it's like Pride and Prejudice meets a world where magic exists. And specifically in this world, it's magic that they call glamour. So it's the ability to kind of change the physical appearance of things. And our main character, Jane Ellsworth, she's on the shelf. She's 28. She's not married. She's not terribly pretty. Her dowry is okay, but it's not anything that people are overly interested in, but she's really, really good with glamour. And she has a younger sister who I think is about 18 at the time, who is beautiful, you know, like just everything everyone wants beauty-wise in a woman at this point. Blonde hair, blue eyes, very happy and joyous and charming, but is really bad at glamour. So that's kind of like the basis of this story, is the difference between Jane and her sister. But Jane comes into contact with this celebrated glamourist who doesn't initially take to her very well. But this is about what happens between this rivalry between these sisters and what women will do to find a good marriage for themselves, a life for themselves. But it's like take Pride and Prejudice and add magic. And in that sense, I really enjoyed it. I thought it was super fun. Again, I don't think it's anything that's like absolutely fantastic. Yes, it is another book that is a series. Yes, it is a series that I might continue with at some point. I'm not in a rush to do so, but it was just a fun, interesting read. I enjoyed the romance aspects of this book. The magic system I thought was really interesting. Just this idea that it's magic that is just changing the physical appearance of things, and that people use it to make it seem like they're wealthy or that their teeth are straight, but it's taxing on the person who does it. It was a good read. It was a good book. It's not a great book, but if that sounds interesting to you, check it out, because the whole dynamic of magic in Pride and Prejudice world was very interesting and fun to read, and maybe you should check it out. All right, guys, there you have it. There are some books that I've read recently. Not my best reviews, I must say. I am a little bit out of practice, but bear with me. I will keep practicing. Like I said, lots of just kind of fun fantasy reads and romances. But if there's any of these books that you want to read now, let me know which ones piqued your interest, or if you have read them, what you thought of them. I want to chat with you guys down in the comments. You know the drill. But if you guys like this video, please like it. And if you loved it, please subscribe. And we will see you in my next video. Happy reading.